Hey guys, what's up? It is your friendly neighborhood UberGoose here, back again with another video on Pangolier in 7.07b, which is a patch that just got released the other day. I believe it got released Sunday night, actually. And in that patch, Pangolier actually got quite a few buffs. Now, I put out a video already saying that Pangolier is good, and these buffs are tremendous for him. And I'm going to show off some of those buffs in demo mode, and then we will hop right into a game that I played as Pangolier after those buffs, and we'll talk a bit more in depth. So the biggest change that happened, well, there's two actually very big changes that happened in 707b that are very important. Now, the first of which is into his base kit, so now Shield Crash makes you jump forward slightly, which means that, say, on this cliff, where normally the only way to cross this cliff is to either walk around or to swashbuckle to the other side, now I can Shield Crash and I'm on the other side. It'll just, you know, like I said, jump you forward a distance. I don't remember the exact distance. Tooltip isn't updated with it. I want to say it's like 250. Definitely not very big. We'll just do it right here. So as you can see, from there, from right around here to there. So that's probably around 250, right? That's like maybe 200, maybe a little lower than 250. Point is, not a huge distance, but it does allow you to jump over cliffs and general impassable terrain with Shield Crash instead of having to stop completely to use Shield Crash, which is a huge quality of life buff. Now, on top of this, the swashbuckle actually got changed to effectively just be an attack, but the attack has a set damage of the damage per strike. And this is actually a pretty substantial buff. Of course, before, swashbuckle would trigger a lot of on-hits, such as Diffusal Blade and things like Mjolnir. These already worked fully with swashbuckle, but there were certain things that didn't work, such as lifesteal and crits. Let's just go that. And then, of course, cleave. I never know where Battle Fury is. So these three things didn't work. Now, I will say I did build Satanic before these buffs, and it seemed when I activated Satanic, it did work with Swashbuckle. Like, I definitely got full health back with my Satanic on by using Swashbuckle. So some lifesteal worked, but I suppose that was probably more of a bug than anything. Now, lifesteal just works, period. And to try and kind of, you know, show off some of this, let's just move these axes to, like, here. So, and you know what, let's get them to 25, just, you know, so they don't instantly die. And in fact, let's lose some life here. Alright, so now all of these things should work, and theoretically this last axe should take a pretty substantial amount of damage compared to the front axe. Fully correct. As you can see, I also did lifesteal. Obviously not a tremendous amount. The biggest issue is that now lifesteal, crit, and of course cleave working, there are still issues in that the crit isn't a lot of damage because, again, it's just this flat damage, and then you're critting on top of that. So you don't really get a lot of value out of Daedalus. The real value out of crits is kind of the multi-scaling with it, where Daedalus gives you damage and the crit gives you damage. And then, of course, with other items as well, you get more and more damage, making the crits bigger and bigger, and the passive critical strike of Daedalus gets better and better as your gear scales. That's not entirely true with Pangolier. In fact, it's pretty much not true at all. Lifesteal, I think, is the biggest benefit of this, in that you can actually sustain yourself in a fight. Pangolier has relatively low health regen values, as well as mana regen. And he does need quite a lot of mana regen. Thankfully, he does get some at level 10, and oftentimes you will build a Ring of Aquila, which will, of course, help that as well. But as far as life regen, there's really no way to gain life regen outside of items on this hero, and I think a lot of the life regen items you can buy are not super good and or super necessary, so I really like having the opportunity to buy lifesteal as that regen. And honestly, even just a plain Morbid Mask is often good enough. But if you really want to, I mean, you can build into Satanic, which will, of course, give you some life from the Strength. It'll give you some extra damage from your auto attacks. It'll then give you the Active, which, of course, will basically full heal you per Swashbuckle. Or you could build it into a Vlad's. I would not recommend building it into a Mask of Madness, by the way, but, you know, I can't stop you. Vlad's is also quite good, now especially because Vlad's and Ring of Aquila auras stack, or was it? Yeah, both. Yeah, Vlad's just stacks now with Basilius and Aquila aura. So you can actually have a Vlad's and an Aquila and get both of the aura benefits. In fact, I don't know why I sold that to show. They do indeed stack. So we get the half a mana regen and 2 armor from Aquila, and then we get the 0.8 mana regen. However much armor Vlad's gives, it just says and armor. 4 armor from that, and then health regen. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, Vlad's is probably really sick. Yeah, probably Vlad's is sick. Also, it says 0.8 mana regen, when this says 0.65, and this says 2.5 health regen, and this says 2. So either the tooltip's fucked, or something. I don't know. Shit's weird. Alright, Dota's in a constant state of flux. Some things get forgotten, but I would recommend at this point, now that I'm looking at it, going Vladimir's. So, with all that out of the way, let's watch a replay that I have downloaded of myself playing Pangolier. I played this on stream, so if you watched my stream, then you'll have already seen this game. I'm gonna speed this up a lot, because we got some pauses coming in right at the start. So, real quick, select myself. I'm still speeding up. There is another pause, I believe. There it is. Speed it on up. Okay, there we go. You know, minute 0 happened, whatever, nothing fancy, nobody fought, nothing crazy happened. Let me minimize that, let me pop open the last hits, and let's begin to talk. So, as far as starting items for Pangolier are concerned, it is going to depend on your matchup. I do believe that in this game, I probably should not have gone with the Orb of Venom. I believe that was a mistake. I think that instead of the Orb of Venom, I should have gotten a bit more regen, specifically a salve, and then I would have been able to pick up a Ring of Protection pretty much instantly from the side shop. So Orb of Venom is 275, a salve is 110. So that means I would have had 165 left over, and of course a Ring of Protection is 175, so I'd need 10 more passive gold on top of that in order to actually start with the salve and the Ring of Protection. But thankfully you can buy Ring of Protection from the side shop now, so I think that probably would have been the way to go. I believe that Orb of Venom was questionable. I do think Orb of Venom is generally a good starting item on this hero, because of course Swashbuckle does trigger the Orb of Venom on all of the targets. This allows you for quite a lot of potential harassment and kill opportunities, just due to the fact that you have the slow effect of Orb of Venom, as well as, of course, it deals some damage. It's not a lot of damage, right? You're adding, I mean, you're probably only adding 15 damage to a full Swashbuckle, but at level 1, it's 24 times 4, so adding 15 to that's not even bad, right? And of course, all of that is before reductions. The 15 is closer to 12, and all that sort of stuff, but it's not bad. Orb of Venom is a very good item for this hero for the aforementioned reasons. I just think that in this game in particular, it was probably a mistake. Other than that, I cannot imagine a world where not buying Stout Shield at the start is correct. I believe buying Stout Shield at the start must always be correct for this hero. He's a melee hero. He has decent armor and decent life. I don't know. I can't imagine a world where not buying a Stout Shield is the correct play. So, I pretty much think that all of your starting item builds need to be Tangos, Stout Shield, and then figure it out from there. I think those two are pretty much guaranteed. They're pretty much default, which means that you have the 275 gold left over, which if you want to spend it on an Orb of Venom, I think that's fine. If you want to buy a salve, maybe even some branches, who knows, whatever you want to do is probably totally fine. A lot of the strength of this hero comes not from items, at least not right at the start of the game. In mid-game, items are very powerful, of course, but right at the start of the game, a lot of the power of this hero is just in his skills. Both of his skills are actually tremendously strong in the early levels. You'll even see against this anti-mage who pretty much out-levels me this entire laning phase. You will actually see my Swashbuckle, I think around level 5, do quite a lot of damage to him. And that's just because Swashbuckle scales quite a bit faster than people's health and armor do in the early game. So one thing I will say about this game is that it might not be the closest game, and whatever the hell is happening in bottom lane in our favor, you know, let's just not talk about it. Don't worry about it. So there were some other buffs for Pangolier though. I'll touch on those. Pangolier, of course, got more than the shield crash moving him forward, and the Swashbuckle being literally attacks. One of the big ones being that shield crash got additional percent damage reduction per hero. It goes up to 18% at level 4 rather than 14% of what it, or which is what it was prior. This means that if you hit a full enemy team, right? If you hit 5 enemy heroes, you get 90% damage reduction. 5 heroes is 90% damage reduction, okay? If you're not even hitting 5, right? If you're hitting 3, 18 times 3 is going to be... No, I got this. 54% damage reduction. That means if you ever hit a shield crash on 3 people, you have 10 seconds of taking under half damage total, right? That's nuts. And that's to all damage as well, right? That includes pure damage. So that shield crash buff is gigantic to the survivability of this hero, especially in team fights. And again, that's not even the only thing. This hero got a ton of buffs. So another buff was Rolling Thunder got buffed in a whole lot of ways. Now it has flat turn rate and flat move speed, when prior it had a turn rate that got faster as you leveled it up, as well as a move speed that got faster. Both of those were like barely scaling though. But overall now the move speed is the same as the level 3 Rolling Thunder, which is 600 move speed, so 50 higher than maximum. And then the turn rate is now 120 at all levels, I think, which is slightly... I think that's higher. I think it was like 105, 110, 115 before, and now it's 120 at all. I could be wrong about that, but it is faster. If you're wondering what that specifically translates to as far as turn rate is concerned, I'm not the guy to answer that. All I know is that, you know, if a number goes higher, it's generally better. This is why heroes with turn rate 1 turn around faster than heroes with turn rate of 0.6, for example. So I'm assuming the 120 it's just got to be faster. They also use the word, you know, improve. And then on top of that, they also buffed the other 25 talent, the Rolling Thunder one, from 12 seconds off the cooldown to 16. It's a very slight buff, almost non-existent. So look at that damage, by the way. That was like... That was a solid third of AM's life just from one Swashbuckle, right? Like that's pretty sick. You can really see the scaling of this skill in the early game. But the main change to that 25 talent is just to kind of even out both of them. I've actually looked at the win rates of all of these talents, by the way, the popularities and win rates of all of these talents, and popularity aside, all of the talents are tremendously well balanced. The only exception being the level 10 tier, where mana regen is more popular by somewhere around 50% and has like a 4% higher win rate average. But attack speed versus shield crash, CD and ball, strength versus swashbuckle damage, and rolling thunder versus swashbuckle cooldown all float around like a 1% lead for whichever one, as far as win rate is concerned, which is effectively nothing. 1% win rate lead from a talent choice is basically just nothing. So they are very much personal preference. I would say, in my opinion, the attack speed at 15 is going to average out to be worse than Shield Crash. I think that's the least close of those three, but I do think the 20s and 25s are very well balanced, which is awesome. Look at that Jakiro's life. I could have gone for him. I could have actually rolled into a ball and run at the Jakiro. The main concern I had is I'm fairly certain Anti-Mage's ultimate actually stops you from rolling. There are a few skills, very few, but there are a few skills that actually stop your rolling because they're BKB piercing stuns. Some BKB piercing stuns don't actually even stop the roll. For example, Pudge Dismember doesn't actually stop you from rolling, it just holds you in place and slowly pulls you towards the Pudge, in which case if the Pudge doesn't have a BKB, you will eventually get close enough to stun him and knock him back and then continue rolling. But there are a few skills that do stop the roll. I'm not sure if that's even intended, but I do know it is the case, and I think Anti-Mage is one of them. So that was my main concern, is I didn't want to get ulted by Anti-Mage, because he was indeed level 6 by the time that I went for the Swashbuckle and got the Jakiro potentially low enough to go in on with the Rolling Thunder. I think as far as skill build is concerned, I've kind of changed, I've changed my tune a little bit. I said in the first video that I talked about Pangolier that maxing Shield Crash by 7 is probably the way to go. I think I disagree with that at this point. I think maxing Swashbuckle by 7 is better. For actually pretty much the same reasons that I said Shield Crash was better before. The main difference now being that I don't think you need the higher damage reduction from Shield Crash in most cases at level 7, and you'd much rather just have the extra damage from Swashbuckle. Because Swashbuckle is the higher damage option, and it's also fairly likely that you'll have your first item that will augment Swashbuckle in some way by or before level 9 in most cases. And if that is the case, then you want to have Swashbuckle maxed by the time that you have that, so you want to probably max Swashbuckle as soon as possible, which would be level 7. So another nice thing, as you saw there, is level 4 Swashbuckle plus Orb of Venom is literally just enough for the next couple minutes to kill the range creep in the wave, which is very nice. I'm gonna try something here. I'm gonna put the emphasis on try, because I hate since 7.00 I have hated stacking most of the camps in the jungle. I feel like it's Ice Frog's way of trying to get people to stop stacking, because it feels so bad so often. Watch how quickly these, look at that. The tomato potato got leashed barely out of their spawn box, right? They got leashed before they hit this tree to the north, right? You see that tree over here on the left side? They barely leashed there, which that's like 300 units out of their spawn box in that direction. I don't get it. Like, why is this so hard to stack? In fairness, that camp isn't even the hardest to stack. It's not even close. Also, Mud Golems are probably the best camp for Pangolier to farm. I love Mud Golems as Pangolier. The trick, by the way, is to get the Mud Golems to somewhere around 1 to 200 life. So there you can see, I should have canceled instantly so I could get the attacks out. Didn't matter, he died anyway. But there you can see the idea of using a wall to multi-stun a target. And then I intentionally canceled my ultimate in order to get auto attacks out, because there was, you know, basically it would have been a long time. It would have taken longer to kill him if I didn't cancel my ult and I went to bounce off a wall and then came back. That's the sort of situation where you cancel wall. But back to what I was saying, back to my tangent. Let me real quick go free camera so I can actually look at what's going on over here. Let me show you the worst camp in the entire game. This fucking camp right here, alright? This camp, this can suck my dick, this camp, right? So, the trick, of course, is grab it, pull it out through here, but then they leash, like, if you try and pull them to the right, they leash, like, here. And then they just walk right back in, right? They just, I can't draw on the map, but they just walk right back in. They get to, like, here, you know? And if you try and pull them this way, they literally just barely get out of the spawn box. If you try and pull them here, they leash, like, here. This camp is not stackable unless you cut trees. And even if you cut trees, the timing is stupid. You gotta pull this at, like, fucking 57 or something straight up through the tree line. That's, like, the only way to stack it. I hate that camp. It can suck my dick. Jesus Christ. Anyway, back to watching this. So, as you saw, I went for the Morbid Mask as soon as possible. And the reason that I went for the Morbid Mask as soon as possible is because I wanted to deal with the harassment that the Jakiro was putting on me. And I also wanted to be able to kind of, you know, maintain my hit points in any way that I possibly can in the early to mid game. And I had a feeling I wasn't gonna get my Morbid Mask in a while. So here I actually go for the full roundabout, which is not normally a good thing to do, but there weren't any nearby walls to actually get the turnaround on. So the full roundabout was just kind of the way to go. You just give it a little whirly-dirly. And so with the Morbid Mask, back to that, yeah, it gives me that early to mid-game sustain. It actually allows me to be active on the map with my ultimate, which, when you first get your ultimate as Pangolier, it is very powerful. You probably do want to do something with it. It's not quite like picking up a Black Hole or a Ravage, right? It's not quite like that. But it is similar in the way that I think you should generally play it, where you kind of want to make things happen. Now, admittedly, I don't think I do that too terribly much in this game. I think this game I spend a lot of time trying to flash farm and get my my mid-game items as soon as possible, specifically aiming, of course, for this casual javelin into Diffusal Blade. And look, I know that my Aquila was in my backpack here, okay? I understood that my Aquila was in my backpack, and I could have killed this dramatically faster, okay? I know. I figured out right here. You'll see. There it is. Look, man, sometimes you forget things. It happens to the best of us, and me. So at this point, you know, looking at the kill score, you're like, how could you lose? But the gold lead isn't even that big, right? The enemy team is actually farming quite well. This is actually a very common thing that happens in pub games, where one team is absolutely dominating on kills, but barely even has a gold lead, and in most cases also has an XP disadvantage. I don't think we have a disadvantage yet, but we did, right? Like, even though we've kept up these kills the whole time, we were at an XP disadvantage earlier in the game. We just kind of pulled ahead with this string of kills. Right? Like, that's one thing that happens a lot in pubs, is why is there a weird sigil in the fountain now? That's new. That had to be just hotfix, because that wasn't there literally when I played this game. That had to whatever. So, yeah, it's a very common thing in pubs where one team will dominate on kills, but actually just be kind of behind in most cases. And they'll have, like, the morale lead, but nothing else. And one important thing to do is, even if you are so far down on kills, if you're in a solo queue game, probably the most important thing that you could do is attempt to boost the morale of your team. Try and articulate what I've just articulated to you, in that the team who is up on kills often has to commit more time to it and more heroes to it, and as such is going to get less out of the map. Here I forgot you couldn't bounce off buildings, so I gave it a weird whirly-durly. And at this point I was just like, god damn it, he's a juke god. And I had to go for the swashbuckle, like I literally had to, because he aggroed the creeps. And if I didn't go for the swashbuckle, then he could have potentially denied himself to creeps, so there's that. So yeah, try and articulate that, like, the enemy team, the team that is up on kills, often has to commit a lot of time and resources to get those kills, and most of the time will, at best, only gain a slight lead from each kill. You know, if you're committing 5 heroes to kill, say, the anti-mage, like, if we were committing 5 heroes to just kill the anti-mage, that'd be great for morale, killing the anti-mage, right? And it would stop the anti-mage from getting things, but overall, I can't believe I didn't quite hit the Jakir with that. But overall, it is going to be advantaged to the anti-mage and his team. And the reason that it will be that way is because, there we go, easy cleanup. And the reason it will be that way is because even though the anti-mage is getting shut down, his team has so much space from the amount of time and resources you've stuck into 5-manning at the anti-mage. Here I was like so set I was on living and winning the fight, but there was a Venge that came in right at the last moment. Good news is, our Sniper and Crystal Maiden are gods. Sniper's positioning might not look good because he's on low ground, but it was actually a very smart place to be. Very, very intelligent positioning. I do think that the Sniper could have killed if the CM chased straight down and Crystal Nova'd on the ground to give the vision for the assassinate. Thankfully, of course, the Venge was, you know, visible for a brief moment and the Sniper assassinated her anyway. But if the Venge didn't mess up, then the Sniper wouldn't have been able to kill her, and I think obviously the correct play in that entire sequence would have still been for Crystal Maiden to walk straight down Crystal Nova over the trees and hope to give enough vision for the assassinate. So at this point I picked up my Boots of Travel. I actually thought that getting my Boots of Travel before the Diffusal Blade would have been a little bit more valuable. There I'm utilizing the new Shield Crash movement tech, which is pretty sweet. And I prioritize the Boots of Travel first because I want to actually be able to be very active on the map. And I oftentimes, keep laughing, Philomar, keep doing it. Oftentimes when I play this hero, I will notice that you know, being active on the map and maintaining a TP scroll in your inventory pretty much all the time is very difficult for a hero who wants all of these early game items. These, you know, you want a Javelin, you want a Morbid Mask, you want a Ring of Aquila, you want an Orb of Venom, right? All of these things are what you want. Are they all the best thing to have at all times? Not necessarily. Here, by the way, I froze. Dota's been doing a dumb thing where it just freezes all the time. I don't know why. It's new to 707. Wasn't happening before. But thought I could kill him with a shield crash. Wasn't quite enough. Thankfully, I saw he blinked up. And it was a free kill. But yeah, so Boots of Travel, honestly, I really like it because the move speed is awesome. Right? Getting 100 move speed from that. And giving yourself, you know, 420 move speed at 14 is really sweet. And on top of that, it allows you to actually be active on the map by teleporting to different locations pretty much at all times, but saving the inventory slot. Here I was trying to sell the TP scroll because I was confused why I couldn't. It's because this is the TP scroll that you're given at the start of the game. Of course you can't sell it, right? Everybody would then just have 25 extra starting gold, right? But I just dropped it, and I was like, yeah, somebody could pick it up. Nobody did, by the way. I dropped it, I pinged it, all that stuff. You know, I attempted to communicate that I dropped it, and it was in the fountain for somebody to use. In fact, there was a point in time where somebody commented on Sniper not having a TP scroll, at which point I pinged the TP scroll in the fountain, and he still never picked it up. But whatever. Whatever, who cares? So yeah, I really like getting relatively early Boots of Travel on this hero for similar reasons that pros like to pick up Boots of Travel on Ember Spirit. I feel that it is just, I don't know, it just feels good. It just feels really good. Also, I don't think this hero needs any other boots. I think treads are fine. I think you could make an argument for Guardian Greaves. But I think most of the time, there's really not much of a reason to have anything other than Boots of Travel. I actually regret turning off my ball there, and don't talk to me about that swashbuckle, but I regret unballing after rolling through the both of them because of the Jakiro TPing out, of course. Good swap from the bench. If I kept rolling, I could have pressured and basically made it so the Jakiro couldn't TP out, right? I could have made it so neither hero could TP out while my team actually backed up. For some reason, I thought maybe I could have enough burst damage to kill them quickly enough that TPs weren't even a threat, but I miscalculated. I misunderstood how much damage I dealt. But it's alright. It's working out. Look at how much damage Swashbuckle does with a casual Javelin. That's even against an Animage, right? Javelin does magical damage. I misspoke and I said I thought it was pure damage in the previous video, but it is indeed magical. That's one of the benefits of actually upgrading Javelin into MKB, is that it goes from magical to pure, and you do indeed gain damage out of that. It goes from 150 with base magic resist from 2 Javelins to 160, right, with the MKB. Of course, it's a bit more complex than that because each Javelin has its own proc chance, which is 1/3 of the full MKB and yada yada yada, but you get it. So here I just decided to TP out because my team was still nearby. I did see the Venge. I had a strong feeling that I couldn't die to the Venge, even if she did stun to interrupt my TP, and if she did stun to interrupt my TP, then my team was close enough to probably kill her. And I did want to go base anyway, so I think that was, yeah, there was another freeze. I don't know why that's happening. I have no idea why that freezing is happening in 707. It never happened before. I haven't seen many people talking about it on like Reddit and stuff. I saw one person and there were like 3 comments in the thread that were like, yeah, same. But I haven't seen anything else on top of it. I hope it gets fixed soon. It is very frustrating because it just happens completely randomly. There's no like dedicated timer. It's not even guaranteed once per game or anything like that. It just kind of happens sometimes. In fact, I had a game on stream where the first time it happened was at 38 minutes, and then it never happened again, even though the game was like 50-something minutes long. don't get it. I walked right into a DD Venge. I was even warned that there was a DD Venge, so that's 100% on me. But the lifesteal actually saved my life there, as you could see. I life stole a whole bunch by swashbuckling away and aiming towards her. At this point, I've decided I'm gonna walk to base and then boots of travel back out. So there were a few other changes in 707B. There actually were quite a few. Both Morphling and Tiny got buffed tremendously and are both terrible still. Anti-Mage got a whole bunch of nerfs. They weren't all like huge. The biggest nerf that Anti-Mage received was the change to where his uncontrollable blink illusion comes from. It comes at level 20 instead of 15 now, which I do think is a pretty substantial nerf. But other than that, Anti-Mage is still pretty dang good. He does have less strength gain and less base int, but he still has pretty much all of the offensive power that he had prior. In fact, he might even be better than that. Because now at 15, instead of an uncontrollable blink illusion, he has plus agility. And then he has the blink illusion at 20 instead of all stats. And I think that might even, in a sense, be a buff. Obviously, it makes the uncontrollable blink illusion come later, but I think overall, having Agi plus the blink illusion is probably better. So there you can see kind of how I wanted to play the fight. I hit 3 with my shield crash, so now I have 54. As you actually saw there, so I talked about the idea of getting, you know, reapplying shield crash to get a larger number of targets, but that's actually not how shield crash works. If you actually reapply shield crash, you know, the buff is still on you and you use shield crash, it will just refresh. It won't choose a new value, it'll just refresh the previous value. So that does actually heavily incentivize you to get as many targets on your first shield crash and then follow up with single target shield crashes while rolling. Which I do think is another argument in favor of Blink Dagger, so I probably should go Blink Dagger. I still haven't gone Blink Dagger. I really should. I don't know why I don't want to. I mean, I do want to, it's just I don't know why I'm not. There's another item that I will comment on, and I could actually show it in the demo mode as well at the end of this. I wanted to do it in the demo mode, but I forgot about it. So there is another item that is a little bit cheesy, but allows you to get effectively 5 seconds of stun on a single target without actually having to bounce against walls or turn around or anything. And that's Yule's Scepter of Divinity. If you use Yule's... Hey, there's another... No, that wasn't a freeze. That was me alt-timing. Oh, you know what? So I was talking about music and stuff. Just a small tangent. I was talking about music on my stream. And I don't know if you guys have actually listened to the lyrics of the song Little Talks by Of Monsters and Men. But those lyrics fucked me up. Anyway, tangent aside. Let's get back into the game. So Yule's Scepter of Divinity, what it basically allows you to do... I was hoping I could catch him, but I couldn't. He's just too fast. Yule's Scepter, what it allows you to do is pretty sweet. So, you can Yule's yourself, even if you're magic immune. That was a change that was made quite a while ago, actually, for heroes that buy BKB and Yule's and want to Yule's defensively. For example, you BKB, then Silencer ultis, which pierces BKB, of course, and then you want to remove that silence, you could then Yule's yourself even while BKB, right? And that was a pretty good buff, but not a lot of heroes can take a huge advantage of that. I think Pangolier actually can, because you can use yourself while rolling and it won't stop the ball. And your hitbox is actually active while cycloned in the Yules. So what this basically allows you to do is hit a target, right? You roll through a target, keep rolling towards them until you're right inside of their hitbox, like literally right on top of them, and the first stun will be maybe half a second away from wearing off. Then Yules yourself on that location, and then you're floating in the air as a ball, and then after the first stun wears off, they'll get stunned again by the ball that is now floating in their hitbox, get knocked away a little bit, and the knockback actually is small enough that they'll still be in the hitbox, no matter what direction they roll. They'll still be in the hitbox of, it's crazy how he got to that side of the tree, dude. they'll still be in the hitbox of yet the next roll. And because Eul's Scepter lasts 2.5 seconds, if you time everything right, you will get 3 stuns with no gaps in between on the same target when you roll through them and Eul's yourself. Which is really sick. That ends up being around 5 seconds of stun because it's 4.5 from the stun duration itself, and that's not including the time it takes to get knocked back, which is also effectively a stun. So somewhere around 5 seconds of stun on a single target. It's pretty sweet. One thing that I think also works that is worth noting, I actually just had this thought right now, so I haven't tested this at all. It could be incorrect, but it might even be easier to get multiple stuns on strength heroes, because I think the only thing stopping multi-stuns is the stun timer on the individual target. Right? That's what it seems like to me. I don't think that there's a separate value that is like a timer and has the stun value at each level to like stop you from multi-stunning or something like that. I don't think that's the case. So if it is just based on the stun duration, strength heroes will actually be easier to multi-stun because they'll break out of the stun slightly sooner. So that's actually cool. That's an interesting idea. I never thought of that. So here I was like, Necro probably dropped an Ob Sword. But pretty easy fight, all things considered. You know, we just come on through, clean up 2 real quick. I see the Jakiro as well. I want to bounce back, hit Jakiro again, break the thing, swashbuckle, shield crush, clean it right up. So as you can see, I'm doing a lot of like focusing on bouncing off a wall because that is the fastest way to turn around. Of course, doing a full 180 is like a 4-second endeavor or something. Like it's a long time to fully turn around and get back to the original position in ball. So bouncing off a wall is just way faster than that. So you pretty much always want to bounce off of walls. And as long as there's a wall in like a medium distance, like between 300 and 400 range away from the target you want to stun, it should be relatively easy to actually chain stun them at least 2 times, right? Stun them at least 2 times, guaranteed. Hey, there's another freeze. Isn't that great? Man, this game I hit freezes a lot. I forgot about that. So you might notice I have 7,000 gold. I had no idea what I wanted to do with it at this point. Right? Because I was pretty happy with the items that I currently have. So I didn't really know what to do with it. I think in hindsight, I probably should have gotten the Vlads as soon as possible and then gone for a Blink Dagger to replace the Orb of Venom. Also, real quick, so one of the changes in 707B was that Swashbuckle correctly hit spell immune targets. Look at that, 72% reduction. Despite being very much in kill range of Reaper's Scythe, I actually didn't die to it. The sickest disruption of all time. Get me out! Somehow get away. Come back in to clean up the Animage, walk into Ice Path, and of course I die. Of course I do. That's my life, dude. I live on that edge. I live right on that edge. That's my home. That edge right between survival and death. By the way, this Nature's Prophet is my homeboy. Not because I actually know him, but because we played 3 games in a row. Just randomly. This was the second of those games. First game we lost hard because we had 2 people who started the game by flaming. And one of them... So, they started the game by flaming. We had a 3rd bystander leave the game and came back after 4 minutes. And then the guy who began with the flaming, I took the bounty rune, and then that tilted him so hard that he literally stood at the bounty rune for the next 4 minutes of the game. He was actually still AFK at the bounty rune spawn location by the time that our Rubik, the guy who left in drafting, came back. So, yeah, no, it was a clusterfuck. And then this game happened, and then we played one more after that, where a similar thing happened to the enemy team, where a Tiny was laning against me. I was mid as Pangolier, even though I wanted to be off lane, but whatever, I was mid as Pangolier. And then I was laning against a Tiny, and then a Meepo TP'd into mid and just was there for like a second before the Tiny just started walking at my tower and dropping items. So that was a free win as well. It was a weird night of Dota. It was a very weird night of Dota. All of the cancerous garbage that I know Dota for so well came all out of the woodwork for one good night. And you know what? I reveled in it. I took part in the cancer. I did. Because sometimes you just kind of have to. So there I went on the Animage, presuming no blink, because I had a strong feeling that we could have killed him before he actually was able to blink, because of course there was a frostbite stopping his blink, and he had a, whatever it's called, what's the, Soul Catcher. He had Soul Catcher on him, so he was taking extra damage. Of course, I have a strong feeling I know exactly where the Abaddon is going. I had a feeling he was just going to be there. It was easy enough to break the trees and clean him right on up. He actually was hurting really bad, though. The Abaddon could have fucked me up real good. So, there is one more thing that I do want to say about mechanics on Pangolier, which is actually important for the situation of the Abaddon, as well as other heroes, but in this case the Abaddon in particular, because he has a Radiance. Swashbuckle cannot miss, is my understanding. I've never actually had it miss, so it can't miss. Also, somebody tested for me when I asked about it on stream last night and said that it seems it cannot miss. And that has also been my experience, so I believe it. Look at that, just dunk. I should have actually bounced off the fountain wall and come back, but it didn't matter at all. So, yeah, I think Pangolier is sick. I think Pangolier is, like, actually maybe too good now. It's shocking, too, because Pangolier, he only gained a few % win rate from these buffs, which I don't really understand. I got owned. That's another way I die. Shit like that. I ride on that edge, dude. I ride on that edge between life and death and genius and stupidity. That's where I live. And I don't want it any other way. So, yeah, I mean, you could say that that game was a, quote, stomp, but I do think that it was a good example of a lot of the things that Pangolier is good at, despite, you know, the actual outcome and the way it played out. I do think that that was a good game to look at for Pangolier himself. Also, look at my damage, dude. I did more than Sniper. Look at my XP per minute. I'm the only hero who hit 25. It was nuts. But let's real quick go into demo mode. What was I gonna... Oh, the Yules, right. So let's just show that real quick before the video ends. Level 2 max. Let's... I don't know, whatever, man. Let's just do, like, fairly normal things, right? Like, so, yeah, full right is probably a good build, to be completely honest. I want a Blink and a Yule... Uzels. Spawn an enemy. Unfortunately, this is Axe, but it will show what I am attempting to show, despite, of course, he will have some status resist. 14%. That's not a lot, so it should be totally fine. So here's basically the end goal. So this is what you'd want to do. I've never practiced this, so I'm probably going to mess it up, but hopefully I won't. So you want to do something along the lines of begin to roll, blink on top. Oh my god, I messed it up immediately. Alright, hang on. So you want to roll, blink, Yules, stun again, and messed up. So that is, you know, of course, part of the issue is that you do need relatively precise positioning. It will depend on the direction you knock them back. But even in the worst case, it gives you 2 stuns and you're not vulnerable to anything in that duration, which is nice. So let's try it again. It's probably better if they're like up against a wall though, right? Like somewhere around like here or something. And actually, I could start it from like here. Right? Something like that. So that's kind of the idea. I don't think it's the best item, but I do think in certain circumstances where you need a lot of lockdown on a single target, I do think it would be good, right? I do think it could be quite potent. That's definitely harder than I thought it would be, though, I'll admit. But definitely, at the very least, the roll plus blink, right? Because I can do this like I'm running away, but then just go in, right? Like, that's pretty sweet. But yeah, that's pretty much Pangolier. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you have a newfound respect for maybe one of my favorite heroes. I really like this guy now.
That is why I'm here.
That's why he's here, because they say it can't be done. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.